Good afternoon, everyone. Hello and welcome to Forward Fest and our program this afternoon, Launch, Learn, and Pivot, Madison Startup Stories. My name is Heather Ferguson, and I'm the program manager at the Wisconsin Small Business Development Center. We are part of the UW-Madison Wisconsin School of Business, and our office provides support for entrepreneurs through no-cost consulting, as well as affordable business education for businesses to both start their business, manage business operations as you start to grow, as well as leadership training for both entrepreneurs who are becoming their own managers, as well as hiring up and coming staff members. So the SBDC is excited to welcome you today. We are part of the Innovate Network at UW-Madison, which is the department that is providing this panel, along with the UW-Madison Forward Bio Institute. The Innovate Network is a group of UW-Madison affiliated organizations that work together to support innovation, entrepreneurs, and startups. The Innovate Network and the Wisconsin Alumni Resource Foundation, better known as WARF, are proud to be Forward Fest sponsors. We'd also like to thank some of our other major festival sponsors, including the Greater Madison Chamber of Commerce, M3 Insurance, Madison Gas and Electric, Niter and Boucher, Swink, Urban Land Interests, the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, or WEDC, Whipfly, and the Wisconsin Union. Like us in the SBDC, many Innovate Network organizations are resources for entrepreneurs in the community, as well as UW-Madison. Innovate Network members provide services such as free legal services that you can find at the Law Entrepreneurship Clinic, the WARF Upstart program, a free entrepreneurship program for women and people of color, mentoring from experienced business leaders through MERLIN Mentors, and much more. I'm sure you'll learn a lot from our panelists today. We're excited to share some of their startup stories and pivots that they've made throughout the pandemic and early in their business. I encourage you to explore learning opportunities and resources from all the different members of the UW-Madison Innovate Network and explore some of the links in the chat today. The network is here to support our local entrepreneurial ecosystem and entrepreneurs like those on the panels, and of course you as you're joining us. Enjoy the panel. I'm excited to hand this panel off today to my colleague and panel moderator, Cecily Brose.
Thank you, Heather. Welcome, everyone. I'm thrilled to be with all of you and this fantastic panel this afternoon. My name is Cecily Brose. I've been an innovation and commercialization mentor at UW-Madison's Discovery to Product for the last 3 years. If you're not familiar with what we do at D2P, we're a resource for faculty, staff, and students on campus to help transform their ideas and innovations into products and services that change the world. We do this by providing training, grants, and mentoring for UW-Madison entrepreneurs. A little bit about me is that I have over 20 years experience in the consumer products industry, with the majority of my career spent leading research and development innovation teams for Kraft Foods, as well as I also have experience as an entrepreneur starting and owning my own business. I can't tell you enough about how excited I am for this panel today. You truly are in for a treat, and I'm honored to introduce our panelists. So as I introduce the panelists, if you could turn on your video for me. So first I'm going to introduce Georgia Allen. Georgia Allen is the co-founder and CEO for Soaring Independent Cooperative, a worker-owned home care agency in Madison established in 2019. She's also a program manager with the United Way of Dane County's Corporate and Community Engagement Department and volunteer director on 2 local boards. Her most important and fulfilling role is being a mother to her 7-year-old daughter. Georgia's professional and volunteer roles reflect her passion to contribute to initiatives and solutions that promote thriving communities of color and single-parent homes. Welcome, Georgia.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Great. Next, I want to introduce Kit Chow. Kit Chow is the co-founder and CEO at Boosted Shoes. Since becoming involved with the startup community, he has continuously strived to encourage student entrepreneurship through Madison. Kit worked in biomedical and tech startups and interned at several food manufacturing plants as a process engineer before founding Boosted Shoes in 2019. 2019 was a big year. He graduated with honors from UW-Madison in 2021 with a degree in biological systems engineering. In his free time, he likes cooking, reading, and videography. So welcome, Kit. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Cecily.
Okay, next I'm going to introduce Ian Oestreich. Ian founded Curbside Bicycles in April 2020 when he discovered an unmet need for bike repair services exacerbated by the pandemic. Ian set up neighborhood pop-up bike repair shops with same-day turnaround all around Dane County, and more recently launched a second business, Dockside Detailing, which provides mobile boat detailing services. Ian has a UW-Madison degree in kinesiology, is an ACE certified personal trainer, and was previously a personal trainer, a yoga instructor, and a coach at Orange Theory Fitness. Welcome, Ian.
Thanks, Cecily. Good to be here. Thanks everyone else for joining as well.
Okay, last but not least, I want to introduce Erin Vranas. Erin Vranas is co-owner of Parthenon Gyros, an iconic 50-year-old restaurant on State Street in Madison that specializes in house-made gyros. She's also the founder and head yipster at Yips Yogurt Chips, which is disrupting the traditional refrigerated yogurt category with the world's first yogurt chip. Erin was named a 2021 Young Restaurant Leader to Watch by QSR Magazine and In Business Magazine's 40 Under 40 class of 2019. She sits on the Wisconsin Restaurant Association Board of Directors and takes business classes at UW-Madison. Welcome, Erin.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So before we dive into questions for the panel, I want to alert the audience to please feel free to enter questions into the Q&A. This is going to be a even more fun session as if we have more interaction from our audience. And since we can't see all of you, we would love to see questions being flooded into our Q&A inbox. We also have another fun feature of the Q&A that you can upvote questions by pressing on the like button if you really have a question that you want to have asked. The more upvotes moves it to the top of the list. So that's another way to interact with us here on the panel. So with that, I'm going to dive into our questions. And where I really want to start is to hear from each of you a little about your company's origin story. Tell me a bit about how you got started and what were some key turning points during your journey so far.
I was working as a fitness instructor and was unemployed because organized indoor fitness became not a thing. And I wanted to help keep the members of the gym active, and I also know how to do bike repair. So I was actually on the microphone in my class saying, hey, does anybody have a bike and need a bike repair? I'll come to your house. And that evolved into the neighborhood pop-up bike shops that I now do, because especially during the pandemic and even now, Madison bike shops are weeks out. So during the time that most people want a bike, you have to drop your bike off at a shop and leave it for weeks, and you can't use it, which is especially problematic if you have to, if you commute to work, or if you have like a whole family full of bikes. So it was born out of kind of a necessity to want to do something, and then also just the societal need of more convenient and affordable bike repair.
Ian, what's something, and maybe the panelists can add this in too while they're talking, what's something you wish you knew when you started?
It's interesting. I think when you start any business, you have no idea where you're going to be in a year, so you don't know how to plan for it. So I think in any business, it would be really nice to know where you're going to be in a year. Something I wish I knew when I first started would have been like very topically on the what our presentation today is about, is all of the different resources in Madison. I learned along the way, but a lot of them, if I would have had them from the get-go, would have been super helpful. L&E Clinic, for instance, or even D2P is a great resource.
For Soaring Independent Cooperative, it was actually, with most great things, formed through a crisis. As the co-founder and CEO, I needed care for my mom while juggling work, parenting, and so forth. And so being connected to a large group of direct care workers, I sought the care. And I quickly learned that, they were pouring into those that they were serving, but not able to pour into their families. And so that quickly became an interest for me to find out how to build flourishing communities for people needing care, their family caregivers, and the direct care professionals. So brought together a group of women from the same community that, we were already supporting each other in multiple ways with assisting in family caregiving duties for like children, aging relatives, individuals with disabilities or mental health issues. We unintentionally created this culturally competent network of support and empowering both skilled and unpaid caregivers who really understood the value of the work that we provided, both caring for my mom or caring for someone professionally. So we came together in 2019, January, we incorporated to promote quality jobs through quality care through quality jobs. And so that is where we're here today. We're still serving those who need our care.
And how has it gone for you through the pandemic? And this is all of you kind of started your businesses around the same time. So I'm curious, Georgia, what challenges you've run into?
It would, given that we go into the homes, we were successfully able to not have any COVID cases because of our precautions, but we did see a decrease of interest in support coming into the home, so we lost traction. But overall, we were still able to maintain and rebuilding that traction because of people's comfort levels.
We founded Boosted Chews in 2019. So in 2019, I was a junior at UW-Madison. And my friend and I were sort of itching to do something different with our majors, I guess. We were both in engineering fields and found what we were planning on doing to be not quite as fulfilling or like a little lacking in what we expected. And we were both also involved with a club on campus called Transcend UW, which is a large student-run innovation competition. And so we were thinking about how we could apply what we were learning in classes and our personal experiences to some venture that we could sort of explore ourselves. And so just kind of classic, like looking around at immediate problems in your space, landed on something to do with caffeine. Originally, the product was just a drink, so it was called Boosted Juice rather than Boosted Chews, and quickly continued to pivot around as we realized that nobody would have wanted that product. And eventually started to sell it in March of 2020, which is an auspicious month as it was also the start of the shutdown. So from there, we had a lot of immediate pivoting that we had to do due to the pandemic, primarily moving from our in-person like face-to-face sampling ideas to doing purely digital marketing and really trying to figure out our email and social media methods. And yeah, I guess what we wish we would have known as well back then would have been just to try to have more of a idea of organization as we were working through things. One thing that I think we were really enamored with at the beginning was just trying to do everything as fast as we could and go in every different direction because there's so much to explore. But I think being able to just like put things in a little bit better of a frame of mind would have helped us get exactly what we needed at the right times.
And Kit, how do you think now looking back, you could have done that? Like what tools or systems would have helped you from that standpoint?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a large part of it is just assignments and specialization between me and my co-founder right away, as well as having just like more communicative to-dos and just understanding what each of us were working on and when we expected to, kind of finish things off. Of course, there's a lot of those kinds of frameworks online that you can find just within, how companies and teams work. And it's all about just finding what was right for us.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kit. Erin.
Hi. All right. So as Cecily mentioned, I co-own Parthenon Gyros on State Street here in Madison. And we are a 50-year-old restaurant and we make America's best house-made gyro. We're one of the last places in the country to make everything by hand, and really we're the best at what we do. But a lot of people don't know that we also make our own Greek yogurt, and it's super delicious and super good for you. And that's what inspired Yips Yogurt Chips. So that, and I was running around all the time, running a restaurant, taking classes at UW, sitting on a bunch of industry boards and stretching myself to the max. I didn't have much time to sit down for a meal, and I was always looking for snacks that tasted good, but were also good for me. And everything I found was either like boring nuts or unhealthy chips or energy bars, which are really candy bars in disguise. And I tried bringing my yogurt with me, but it's super inconvenient carrying around a spoon and a refrigerator all day. And so we created the first chips made from real Greek yogurt. And that's not yogurt covered candy crap. It's actual Greek yogurt and other real ingredients. And they're also probiotic, prebiotic, gluten-free, non-GMO. And the best part is no spoon or fridge required. We launched on Valentine's Day and we're currently in 25 stores nationwide and on our way to 25,000 stores eventually with your help.
And Erin, what is, so you kind of started up at the end of the pandemic. So I'm curious, what's some things that you learned along the way? And is there anything that you wish you knew when you started?
What are some things that I learned along the way? We spent the whole of the pandemic really like testing, tweaking, seeing if there's any sort of market validation. And we did launch in Valentine's Day, which is more toward the end. However, now, today's the first day of the mask mandate again. So is it really the end? But things we learned along the way, we really, really needed to be flexible. I think that's with anything, any business during the pandemic, you really got to think on your toes and be able to pivot, as this is titled, and move quickly, think, make changes, think, act. And the other thing is patience. I'm not the most patient person in the world. I want things to be done now and on my timeline, and bigger companies don't work like that. So as we're putting all of these pieces into place, it really took a lot of patience, and it's still taking that.
Erin, that's a great segue into my next question, which is, what is it like to be an entrepreneur? So tell me what it's like in your world. So we have a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs potentially here in the audience, or people who already have businesses and are looking for ways to get assistance or help. And I'm curious from you, what are your personal feelings about what it's like to be an entrepreneur? Why do you do it?
For me, it's a lifestyle. I live it. I love it. It absorbs my entire being. It's being an entrepreneur. I mean, the reality is you really need to, especially when you're part of a startup, you need to expect, no days off, no nights off, no weekends off, or holidays or anything like that. You have to be willing to work the 10, 16, however many hours a day, 7 days a week, and also probably not get paid, at least at first. And all of that sounds negative, but it's really not if you love it. And you need to ask yourself, like, what's driving you? What is your why? And how much do you believe in it and believe in yourself? Because it's going to be a lot of work and a lot of hard work, and no one's going to do it for you. It all comes down to you. But if you thrive off of that sort of thing, then this is a world for you. And for me, that's how it was ever since I was little. I never could decide on this or that. I want to be this, I want to be that. Like, no, when I was in college, I switched my major 5 different times because I wanted to be everything. And that's what's cool about being an entrepreneur, is that you get to literally be everything, which can be overwhelming at times, but it's also very satisfying and gratifying.
Thank you, Erin. I will add to that. For me, being an entrepreneur is, for me, I was able to accept, like, my aspirations were there, but I was able to accept that I could start from where I was, not where I wasn't. And, with what I had at the moment, right? So all of the aspirations and goals of certain education or experience attainment, I just accepted that I would be able to get that along the way. So for me, that really opened up a freedom to like reimagine my future and the future of the world. You know, it's the opportunity to, you know, own the life, well, really own the life-changing ability that you would be able to intentionally use your imagination. You'll, you know, set trends, you know, pull the future towards you. I feel like I just have that opportunity to, you know, use my imagination. I'm not restricted to what my culture wants, not restricted to what society wants. It just allows me to be free. So that's what entrepreneurship means to me. I'm able to make a new box or make the box bigger. And so, like Erin said, I think it's an opportunity to do all that you ever wanted without any bad feelings about it.
Yeah, it gives you an opportunity to dream, right? Yeah. And you can dream big, but you know, there's steps you got to take along the way to achieve those dreams, but you got to take the first step and realizing that, you know, this is something that you're passionate and you want to do going forward. So great. Thank you, Georgia.
I think for me, being an entrepreneur, the most important skill to have is the skill, ability, and want to learn. Because if you can learn new skills, as you both have said, you have to be a jack of all trades. You have to do every single thing in your business from the get-go. And if you believe in yourself and you can sit down and actually study and learn and be diligent, then you absolutely can be successful. And it's awesome for me that I've done that. I mean, I've tried multiple different businesses and some haven't been successful, and Curbside Bicycles has been. So it's such a sense of pride and accomplishment to own your own thing. And I mean, to have in my email right now, I have people that have gone online since we've started this meeting and booked a bike tune-up on the website. So the fact that they're choosing to use my service over many others in Madison is such a sense of gratification. And that's kind of what being an entrepreneur is all about.
Yeah, I certainly agree with everything that everyone has been saying. But on top of that, I think part of learning to be an entrepreneur is developing like the I guess thick skin enough to hear no and be like trodden down like a lot of the time, because a lot of what you're doing by definition is stuff that other people aren't doing as much. And so with that, trying to push your own way through and really like muscle through everything, like people of course will be detractors and keep telling you, no, that's not going to work. This is not how it's going to go. So I think learning to have that level of being able to just continue through that toughness, I think is an important part of being an entrepreneur. But one thing that really helps with that is just the community around all the people that you meet through the journey. Like already just through being in the Madison startup ecosystem, just meeting everybody who is also doing their own ventures and their own companies on the sides are all so supportive. And although everybody's working on different things, the experiences a lot of the time are very similar or very comparable. And having that support system and that relative like community with everyone really helps and makes all of it really worth it, I think.
And I'm going to actually go to one of the questions that have already come in, because I think that this really plays in with this topic about entrepreneurship and what it's like to be an entrepreneur. So Teresa's asking, are you all solopreneurs or are you a team of a few employees? If employees, she wants to know, how do you know what duties to divvy up to employees versus a task you should take and feel comfortable letting go of or letting go of control? So I know all of you are early in your company formation, but I'm curious if any of you want to talk about, are you doing it on your own? Do you have a team? And how do you manage that team?
I can
speak to that real quick.
Oh, go ahead, Ian. I'll go after you.
Thanks, Erin. So I started as a solopreneur and I did a whole bunch of things, and Curbside Bicycles primarily advertises via neighborhood social media. So that's how we get the word out. So social media is very important. I literally don't have social media. Like I don't have a Facebook or Instagram or anything. And that's so important as a small business to be able to get the word out and like build a following. I didn't do that at all when I first started. And that was so I had now have an intern that I realized that this is something that's important. And if it's not happening and it needs to happen, I'll give it to somebody else. And I give her full control. I'm like, look, here's kind of the parameters. Go for it. And she's been awesome. So I think how you know what to give away, don't give away the things you like doing, because that's what drives you. Do the things that are essential, but that you really struggle with, and that's the thing that bogs you down. Find somebody who enjoys that, give that to them.
I am unmuted. Okay. So I agree with everything that Ian said, and this is something that's really big with us, especially at Parthenon. We always talk about delegation, like with our leaders and stuff like that. So for me, I have as a co-founder my husband Dimitri. He also co-owns Parthenon with me, and then we have an awesome team of people at the restaurant who are also doing stuff with Yips as well. So we're really lucky in that respect. But going back to delegation, that's really important that you know how to delegate and that you find tasks. It's basically like anything that's easily teachable or anything that is a bit more repetitive. That's something that you should delegate to someone else, because for us it's all about systemizing everything and then training on that, because I want to work on my business and not in my business. Now obviously a lot of what I'm doing, I'm working in it. That's part of being a startup founder, right? But ultimately the goal is I want to get to the point where I'm working on it, because when I'm working on it I can scale it and grow it. When I'm working in it and I'm doing more of like the day-to-day tasks that I could easily hand off to someone else, that's not allowing me to grow. The other thing that I suggest is find people that are smarter than you. Surround yourself by people who know better than you do. Like I don't know social media as well as someone else. I'm not as creative, and so we get someone else to do our social media, and he does an incredible job with it. Now I'm checking in and providing feedback, and there's so much back and forth. Like it's not like we ever give out a task and then say goodbye, do it. You know, there's a lot of back and forth with it. But either way, systemize, delegate, train it, anything repetitive or anything easily trainable.
I second everything that Ian and Erin has said. At being a co-founder of a worker-owned cooperative, taking on being the CEO as well, I took on a lot of the development and structural parts of our company. We did start when we did decide to be founders of this organization or company. We did decide to look at our strengths and weaknesses, and so everyone was able to step into the role that they needed, that they knew that they would be able to do easily, as well as those areas that they wanted professional development. So areas that we did see gaps, we just consulted and reached out for specific expertise. So delegation, I think, is definitely difficult sometimes, given if you don't have anyone with the skill set. But I think that we have the opportunity to work with consultants to train us so that we don't need that in the future.
Yeah, and I think in addition to being able to delegate out, if even the people that you're working with don't feel comfortable, or if they don't feel like they are able to do what you're trying to give off to them, I think a large part of that is also just trying to find like the right mentors and the right people who can help you grow into being that person who can take care of it, so that you can become somebody who does enjoy like that more sticky, like difficult part of what you'd be working on. And in addition to just like delegating tasks and like, you know, kind of figuring out what you like to do, a lot of the time, the big rocks that you have to overcome might be like the thing that you just dread doing the most, or you just like are just leaving off until the end. But I think stepping back and kind of realizing why it's something that you're dreading the most, I think is what like we've personally had to experience doing, so that we can really just go ahead and do that right away. Whether it's between me and my co-founder, or trying to find help to do that, because that's oftentimes the thing that will push us forward the most and move that needle more than anything else.
Yeah, I remember us having conversations about that too, as you guys were starting up Booster Choose. It's difficult to do the stuff we don't know how to do. And it's easier, and we feel like we can check things off the list to do the things that we know how to do it. And those are sometimes not the things that are going to push you over the start line or get you to a new milestone in your journey as you're starting up your business.
I want to add to that. I think that, having I participated in Upstart and many accelerators, G-Beta and so forth. And I think that one thing that like was overwhelming as an entrepreneur when I was in these accelerators is that there was a different person coming in with every area of business startup. So marketing, payroll, or just different areas of entrepreneurship. And I think that like those people were experts in these areas. And I did not have the time to become an expert in those areas, but it just opened my eyes to really kind of what I'm going to talk about later, but like the networking and leveraging, knowing where you're great at and where you should, delegate that externally, because you want to make sure your business is still going and not spending too much time on something that you can just get some assistance with.
I want to pipe one more time on that too. Because going along the lines of what Georgia said, knowing what you're good at and what you're not, it's also important for me anyway. What I've learned is to know a little bit about everything. So just that way you don't kind of get yourself in trouble or pay too much money later on. So just having an idea so that if you do need to step in and do it, maybe you won't do it as well as someone else, but you can kind of keep on top of what they're doing, and then you're not going to get yourself in hot water later on, which is something that I'm sort of dealing with right now. Yeah.
That's great. Okay, I wanted to ask you a question about what challenges did you face during the pandemic, that you started your business and launched your product right at the beginning of the pandemic. And what did you learn about your business that you plan on carrying forward based on what you experienced?
Sure, yeah. So our initial ideas for how we would be able to market our product out, considering we aren't marketing backgrounds or had a lot of experience like that, we thought the easiest thing was to be able to go out and do like tabling out in very like populated areas, to be able to go partner with some small businesses in the area so that we can just kind of do cross promotions between us and things like that. And we were all very excited to do that until we could not be in crowds. We had to stay inside and all that kind of jazz. So one thing that we had to figure out right away was how we would still be able to get our product in the hands of people. And so a big thing that we were kind of realizing is that talking to businesses is not as scary as it seems, I suppose, and like trying to figure out new ways to do things. As long as you come with I guess, smiling face and ready to like show your idea effectively, I think people are very receptive to things if they think that it could be like mutually beneficial, or if they see some support from the community, especially if you're looking at the small business and entrepreneurship world. But essentially what we were learning through the course of pivoting out of our sort of preconceived mindsets of what we thought would be easy and effective is that you can kind of just throw things at the wall internally until you think something works, and then start just like spreading that around to people that you're trying to work with, whether they're small restaurants or all their like local stores in the area. And more often than not, they'll at least lend you an open ear, if not try to keep having a conversation and figure something out with you.
Anyone else want to weigh in on this question?
It is good to have connections.
Oh, sorry, Erin. Now you go first.
Okay, you do it next time then. I was just thinking about what Kit said, and it is good to have connections and look to others. And Kit and Aditya, his partner, actually came to Parthenon a couple weeks ago and gave us a whole load of advice. It was amazing. Thank you, by the way, Kit. So that is important, and that's something that, yeah, that we'll carry forward too. But for us, challenges faced, due to the pandemic we had to switch gears. Originally, we were thinking of opening more restaurants, but then we found out that we could get our product in front of more people in different ways. And so basically, you need to stay open and be flexible and make changes very quickly, even big life changes. Expect the unexpected and just be able to dance with it. Pushing past obstacles, even when people are afraid for their lives and won't meet with you. And I love that everything has gone virtual. I know that's kind of been a pain for some people, but for us, it's actually helping a lot, and it's saving so much time and energy. If I'm gonna meet with a mentor or meet with a buyer or something like that, we can just pop on a Zoom and I can meet with one after the other, versus having to drive to the different parts of town, or as I'm growing and expanding, flying to different parts of the country. This virtual thing is great.
And I think people are getting more and more comfortable in this environment as well. It's becoming acceptable to interact.
Yeah.
I think one thing that the pandemic made so apparent and salient to people, and probably seen in a lot of businesses going out of business, is if you're going to build a product or a service or a business, don't build one that's completely dependent on the current structure of society. And if one main part of that structure gets removed, that your whole business crumbles. So basically, as you're building your business, think and build in pivots, because that way, if something like a pandemic strikes, you can no longer be in person. You've already kind of thought at least a little bit down that, pathway. So then you're not completely caught unawares, and then all of a sudden your whole income stream is gone and you have to close your doors. It's interesting for me because my business evolved in the pandemic, and actually the pandemic helps Curbside Bicycles because we set up pop-up shops, not only on weekends, but weeks, because people are actually home during the week to walk us a bike. So I am actually having to build in pivots for when the pandemic ends and people go back to work. That's I built a business with the idea that everyone is at home. For me, my whole business is kind of flipped from where most people are at, which is interesting.
And I will add one of the pivots, or I would say expansions we had in our business, is that, this is a industry that home care or direct care is led by women. So a lot of our staff had children. And when the pandemic happened, we had to, they're not in school. There's the virtual learning aspect. So, which is really cool. We formed this informal childcare support network for our employees. And from that, it kind of opened our eyes to the care that is needed for this industry. So with that, we, have now expanded in doing more work around how do we serve the children of those parents that are working. So lots of pivoting, looking at the new ways to support employees. And so that was a huge pivot for us.
That's great. Good examples of ways to potentially turn a negative into a positive, and present new business opportunities. So that's wonderful. I want to now move a little bit more into what are some of the programs, people, and resources that you accessed since before and since starting your company, and how they help you be successful. And I'm going to start with Erin on this one.
You start with me because I used so many of them. Yeah, well, I actually started I used so many different resources at the UW. One was D2P. So thanks to Cecily. Cecily was one of my first mentors. Even before I had this idea, I had Cecily, which was cool. And I'm going to make her blush a little bit here, but just deal with it, Cecily, because she's amazing and she's like my favorite mentor. Sorry if anyone else is listening, but she's my sounding board. I call her behind her back. I call her my Golden Gate Bridge because she's golden and she seriously is a bridge to so many resources. It's amazing how many people she has brought me to that have also continued to help me. Also within the UW system, I have been a part of SBDC. Ann Inman is my advisor there, and I've used them for just general business and business plan questions. L&E Clinic at the business school, Jeff Glazer and a student helped me do trademark, operating agreement, packaging legalities. And mind you, all of this stuff is free. Wow. FFI, Tara and Brad there, just any general financing questions. And FFI stands for Food Finance Institute, and just building food businesses. Another person organization that Cecily connected me to was the CDR, the Center for Dairy Research, and that was like dairy legalities, and they connected me to a contract manufacturer. And then Vic Grassman there wrote this Turbo Handbook, which is literally a step-by-step guide for starting food businesses. And this is incredible. If anyone is out there starting a food business, look up that Turbo Handbook because it's the best piece of material you're going to get. I'm going to keep going. The Food Research Institute at the UW is just like miscellaneous food science questions. I'm now a part of G-Beta, which Cecily connected me to G-Beta, and that's an accelerator by Generator. It's not equity-based, but it's like business building, mentor connections, and it's all about accelerating your business. So all of this is, I mean, the whole point of all of this is that it's like one resource leads to the next, which leads to the next. And we could not have found any of these just by Googling them. Like, you need to know people. And so it's all about putting yourself out there. And that's not just within the UW ecosystem. That's been like us being a part of Madison Originals Restaurant Group led us to connect with Metcalf's, which led us to a sales broker, which led us to a consultant company, which led us to contract manufacturers. Like, it's really cool how one thing leads to the next. And I'll be done ranting now, but it's really neat. That's my whole point, is like, just stay open because one thing's going to lead to the next. And it's really cool.
I want to bounce off what you said, Erin. We have like 30 people tuning in right now. And if any of you have an idea and you're like, oh, but it's not quite polished out yet, I still need to think about it, whatever, reach out to somebody. Go to D2P, find a mentor, because there are so many thoughts and resources out there that have input that you haven't even considered. And you could be considering it right now if you just reach out and start to look at these resources. And just like Erin was saying, one thing will lead to another. So really just start with one. And there's so many in the Madison area, many of which Erin mentioned. Another one that I've used is MERLIN Mentors. And I have a team of mentors there, and they're all great.
I second everything Ian and Erin said. One resource led to another. I actually started at the library looking for business, how to write a business plan. I was connected to WIBIC and then Madison Cooperative Development Coalition, and it just flowed from that. Connected to University of Wisconsin Center for Cooperatives, SBDC, Wisconsin Small Business Development Center, Michelle Summers-Palmer. She was amazing mentor. Upstart program, Katie Rice. I gotta give Katie and Michelle a shout out. They're amazing. And connecting our groups to other resources. G-Beta, I did complete G-Beta Social Impact with Lauren Usher, amazing mentor, still continues to be. And actually, from some of those networks, I actually connected with national resources and mentors. So it's just, reach out. It's like I said, I started at the library and it just went from there.
How do you handle the concern about, well, I don't want to tell anyone my idea because they might take it? What do you guys think about that?
Move past it or you'll never grow.
Yes.
Get over it.
I struggled with that given some of my cultural history and whatnot, but I would say that what's for you and what you're supposed to do is for you to do. I think that without sharing, I wouldn't have gotten as far. I wouldn't have had as many mentors and information. And there was so much that came through, sharing it, that I learned continuously how to improve, how things that I didn't know. But without you sharing, you really won't get to where you're trying to go.
Yeah, I think another thing is that the idea of a small startup business, especially when you're looking at the lean startup methodology and everything, is that you're moving fast and you're moving as fast as you can to execute this idea. And so absolutely don't be worried about somebody else stealing your idea, because they might have more resources, but they're already doing something else, presumably. This should be what you are focusing on and what you are trying to really bring to fruition as fast as possible. And I think that kind of also kind of helps to light a fire under you so that you can just continue to bang it out and, get the product, get your idea out into the world, and have it as good as you can before anybody else can even hop on or follow in your footsteps. Yeah.
Hey, Kit, didn't you also take advantage of a program that was like an idea? You before you even had an idea, can't you be a part of a program? Is that like G Alpha or something like that?
Yeah, so that is the sort of first accelerator program, you could call it, out of Generator. And so that basically was a program to help people who are just generally interested in entrepreneurship and had some concept of what they might want to do, develop that into a more thorough and well-made business. And so that was very helpful and kind of helped us feed into G Beta. A couple of quick other ones that I just would want to mention as well is, while we haven't participated in it, MadWorks Accelerator is another great program that focuses more on governance and how to have your internal structure and legality of your company work. And also just really working your LinkedIn connections. So I guess you might experience the random outreaches on your mentions or your DMs on LinkedIn, and it can be annoying at times, but more often than not, just kind of responding, and maybe even at the worst, you set up a 10-minute meeting and nothing comes of it. It's fine. But at best, you get a really, really valuable connection that you never would have experienced otherwise. And all it would take is just you reaching out or them reaching out back to you, or just kind of finding one of your mutual connections to introduce. And it really has helped us actually in the past to just, push the needle.
Yeah, that's a great lead into my next question. And I think I'm going to have Georgia start on this one, but it's around the importance of networking. What's your advice to the audience around networking? What strategies did you employ? How did you reach out to people for help? What worked and what didn't from a networking perspective?
I don't feel like there's a failure in the networking world. I think that if you understand that you can gain anything from each encounter. So for me, I first started off with, of course, sharing my vision, attending different networking and business conferences that were either related or not related, just to get exposure to more entrepreneurs or business-minded individuals. For me, as an entrepreneur, I didn't decline a meeting. It was very exhausting. And when mentors or people suggested to talk to this person or talk to that person, go to this organization, I didn't stop or say well, what would be the outcome? Always had an open mind of, being willing to connect with individuals, whether they, understood the workforce that I was in or the industry I was in or not, which was very beneficial. And also I think it was very beneficial because it opened up a lot more doors. But networking is very crucial. It can help you, expand your vision. You can gain more understanding. For me, I started as a minority Black woman looking to solve issues of Black women. However, it has expanded to understanding that this is a women issue, that, unpaid caregiving and the needs. So I think it was just very helpful to be open to networking and hearing, really listening, not for something specific, but just listening, because you walk away with a lot more than you expected.
For me, networking, nobody wants to work with strangers. Everyone wants to work with friends. And so you just have to go into it and be comfortable with yourself and just be who you are. You want to meet people and be real. I mean, it's one thing to go in with a pitch, and you should generally sort of have your elevator pitch and have that stuff ready. But when you present it, be real about it. And then on top of that, don't be annoying. Be humble, ask questions, and know that you don't know everything. Nobody also likes when people try to impress others with their knowledge. Impress them with your curiosity and with your passion. Yeah, it's all about making friends with people and being real. Put yourself out there and just do it, because one thing will lead to the next, and all of a sudden you'll have this incredible business and you'll have so many people to thank for it.
I want to pause for just a moment, encourage people to, the audience, to put questions into the chat. We have a couple here that I'm going to get to here in a minute. But I think you're right. How do you, if you're going into a room of all these people you don't know, like, how do you do that? Erin said, you have to be confident in yourself to do that. But what are some other things?
I think
How do you
one
put
thing
yourself out there?
that's really important to understand is most of those people in the room are just versions of you, and everyone's kind of nervous. And the person standing over in the corner that's looking intimidating, they're just looking intimidating because they're shy and they're trying to put on a face or whatever. Just go talk to somebody. And as soon as you say hi to somebody, they'll light up, because they also just wanted to have a conversation, especially if you're at, like Cecily, you said, like a networking event. You're at a networking event. People want to talk. So the best thing you can do is just, even if you're shy, nervous, whatever, just pick somebody, walk up to them, and then throw yourself out there. And that's, as we've said again and again, one thing will lead to another, and you'll just get better at it, and you'll get more confident.
Yeah, and I think another strategy that I've employed is realizing that people do like to talk about themselves. They know the most about themselves. And so if you figure out like what kinds of things that they're doing, and you can even just start with saying, like, what do you do? And if you have any sort of background knowledge on that, you can ask those like next couple questions. Or if you have no background on that, you can ask for like, what are they talking about? Like, I don't know any of the words that you're saying. Can you help me understand? And showing that interest in them, I think, helps them form a rapport with you, and hopefully they'll reciprocate at some point, and you guys can kind of have a back and forth. And from there, I think it helps really just like develop a relationship from there, from the ground up.
Mm-hmm. Those are great words of advice. Let's talk a bit about the money side of starting your business. And each of you have built a business. Can you tell me, and I'm going to start with Ian on this one. Can you tell me about how you got started in your funding model, and what's your advice to someone not knowing where to start from the financial side?
Yeah. So again, we have like 30-ish people tuning in here. Maybe some of you want to be an entrepreneur, and you attend these events, and you go to Starting Block, and you learn about venture capitalists and like seed money and different rounds of funding. And you're like, my God, should I have a venture capitalist? Do I need to be looking for an angel investor and whatever? I was doing that, certainly, because I've tried a couple of different ventures. And for me, honestly, it's so important to find your MVP, so that's your minimum viable product. The thing that you can, whatever the smallest amount is that you can get in front of some sort of customer or consumer for somebody to give you advice and maybe a little bit of money, and start with that. And hopefully you can self-fund that, or you can bootstrap it from your family and friends. But don't think that you need to launch with some crazy product and that you need to find your angel investor right out of the gates. Because if you try to do that and you try to create this product and make it really big right away and then get it out to the people, chances are you missed the mark. And you also missed the opportunity for a ton of feedback along the way that you'll get by starting much smaller and launching slowly. So in terms of funding, I mean, I personally funded my whole venture. And if you're not able to do that, then find the smallest amount that you need to be able to start something.
That's great. Any other thoughts?
I can pipe in a little bit. We're also self-funding right now. We're still small, but we have been saving for this. It helps to do things on your own rather than hire consultants because they are very expensive. We've joined an accelerator, a non-equity based one. We're considering joining an equity based accelerator where they would take a small percentage of it for a small amount of money. But we'll see where we go with that. Right now, we're building our list of mentors and potential investors. We're also sending monthly updates so that we're keeping top of mind with them, with all of these mentors and potential investors. And that's something that all of these accelerator programs recommend that you do. And I know that other people here do that too. We will soon run a seed round. We're not exactly sure when we move to this contract manufacturer. It's very high minimum order quantities and it's going to cost a decent amount of money. And it'll be with the idea of having a smaller piece of a bigger pie with others involved. But what we want to do when we're selecting potential eventual investors is be very selective, and we're going to make sure that our investors are a good fit specifically for our company and that they can also contribute as mentors, because the last thing I want to do is take on money from someone who doesn't know anything about what I'm doing and who can't contribute in a positive way to also help grow the company. Yeah, and also who have the same values.
For our company, we started in the beginning with some self-funding, and then we tapped into some technical assistance through Madison Cooperative Development Coalition. And part of that was, bringing people together with limited expertise and experiences in business development or having a business, as well as being in healthcare. There was a lot of areas that we didn't have the competency in, but we could do the work. So we had to utilize some consultants to get us to the place where we were able to be on our own. So it just depends on who and where you're starting, and given the industry, the targeted workforce that I had chosen, there was a little bit more startup costs for ensuring that we could promote that quality care and really upskilling, right? We're upskilling these individuals, giving them professional and personal development, which is something I'm proud of because that was lacking in this industry. So utilizing some of those technical assistants would be an option too.
Yeah, and I think with our company, we also are still fully self-funded. We have won a couple competition awards and things now, so that's helped out. But a large thing with beginning a company, I think, is that you tend to have more time than you have money. And so you have to work on ways to convert both of those things into actual outcomes. And so I think to Erin's point from a little bit ago, having to be okay with working like a long time just on things that like make your company move forward is kind of a necessity with like the beginning. So you'd better make sure that you enjoy it because you're going to have to do it unless you just happen into a large sum of money. But of course, that's not something you can ever count on. And I don't think that would be a good mindset to be in regardless, because I think that way of learning to buckle down and just like work and grind through things and learn and continue to pivot, I think is a very crucial life skill to continue existing in the entrepreneurship world.
Yeah, Kit, you brought up this aspect of time, which, you know, and how important and valuable your time is and how you're spending your time. And one of the audience questions kind of goes to this is, what's one thing you wish you had early on in your journey as an entrepreneur that would have saved you time, energy, money, stress, etc.?
Yeah, I think
you want to add?
yeah, so I think that what would have saved time at the beginning is I guess having an idea of what we wanted to accomplish with this. So at the beginning, as we were kind of just looking towards doing a like student competition in innovation, we knew that we wanted to do something in like the entrepreneurship space, or you know, do something like that, but we weren't quite sure like who it was for, or like why we were doing it, or other than we just like wanted to do something. And I think one thing that we were missing from there was like really talking to our market. So at the beginning, you know, we had been developing all these different products, and we are like, oh, this is gonna be so cool. Like we probably would love it. Like you know, and we are people in our target market probably, right? And then we looked out, and then like it turns out that we weren't at all. Like we weren't representative of who we were trying to sell to. And so having an idea of like where you're trying to go first, and then testing that first before you put too much time and energy into a product that won't work anyway, is a very important thing to kind of save on that efficiency.
How do you do that, Kit? How do you go out and see how do you do the work to figure out who cares about this idea?
Yeah, you gotta.
Kind of a loaded question, because we've had lots of conversations about this.
Yes, we have. And I think one thing that we really had to work on was just going out and asking people. With just like me and my co-founder going back and forth all the time, and just kind of trying to like talk through things. I think it's very easy to get into our own heads and, you know, think that this is what everybody thinks, you know, like, you know, we're two people, like that's two whole people. But just like finding emails, like just spamming like your logo or your just like contact information everywhere, so that you can get that like positive feedback loop going. Like the second that you get somebody interested in your product, make sure that they continue to be interested in the product. I think that's like a big way to get more information and more of a way to continue.
We did that too, in terms of like, how do we go and we get that feedback? So we actually spent probably almost 3 months, more than 3 months actually, just giving away free samples and then gathering feedback via surveys. But we really needed to be careful now looking back, and now we're running another survey because you're constantly evolving, right? Business doesn't just stop once your product is out in the marketplace. But what I kind of wish we would have done is gotten more feedback initially specific to our target market, because oftentimes if you're just getting feedback from everyone, then you're wasting your time, because you really need to narrow in on a niche market. And then other things is like knowing what to, on another subject of what we might have done differently, is like knowing what to do myself versus what to hire out, because that can also get very expensive. And then also coming up with a solid plan before launching. It's okay to take a little bit extra time to make sure all of your ducks are in a row before you launch. I have this tendency to just like have this idea and then, you know, jump off a roof and then figure out how to fly on the way down, which is, I think it's kind of a thing that a lot of entrepreneurs do, is you just get excited and put it out there, you know. And, you know, maybe that is a positive thing, because we are where we are right now because of that. I
want to just real quick bounce off what you said, Erin. I think the metaphor of jumping off a roof and trying to figure out how to fly on the way down is a good one. And to do that, but not to jump off a roof and then make your product, but to jump off the roof and then talk to people about your product, like is the best way to go. So just get feedback, talk to people. Don't worry about them stealing your idea, as we already talked about. Just talk. That'll help.
Yeah, if I can add in here, just that from the mentor side of me, make sure that you are really early in your idea development, understanding these consumers, like what's important to them, what are the problems that they have. Let's take, for example, Ian. My bike hasn't been tuned up in 3 years, and it'd be great to have it done, but I don't know where to take it. Like, those are pain points you have to understand about your consumer, right? And you probably wouldn't have found out about that if you were pushing your solution to that problem early on, right? So you need to understand the market that you're in and what your consumers care about. And then you can dive into how your solution helps to solve their problems once you really understand what their problems are. Okay, I'm going to jump into the next question, which is from Carly. I've heard before you make a breakthrough that there can be a lot of resistance. So like fear, hesitation, obstacles. Did you experience this tipping point shortly after starting your business, and any learnings you want to share about that? So have there been any big hurdles you had to get over? And how'd you get over them? Or something you had no idea how to tackle?
Yeah, I think one of the big hurdles is at a certain point, you start to maybe think is this actually worth committing to? Like for us, it was when we were about to start manufacturing our first order, and we were like, well, we need to put in this large sum of money so that we can actually use these manufacturing facilities. I needed to go through a 60-hour training thing for being able to manufacture food. We needed to find out how to buy all these ingredients and get these all shipped and figure all that. And that was sort of our first big is this worth it? What are we gonna do with this? And I think what really helped me there was that since there were two of us to kind of go back and forth and both be okay, this probably will make sense, this will work. Having at least just one person to talk it over with and evaluate things is, I think, a very useful thing to have when you're approaching that tipping point and jumping off the deep end.
Any other thoughts on that one? Okay, I'm going to jump into the next one. Did you have prior experience in your current venture? And if not, how did you overcome the journey of starting? How'd you flip the switch?
I can pop in here. So I did have experience in the food industry, obviously having a restaurant. However, what we've learned is that the CPG space, the consumer packaged goods space, is a completely different world. However, when it boils down to it, I was recently speaking to a mentor, and he was telling me, he's like, it doesn't matter if you're in tech or you're in whatever it is, food space, 80% of businesses are the same. I don't know where he got that number from, but if you think about it, a lot of these businesses really have the same backbones. So it has been a learning curve getting into this new space, but thankfully I do have the food background. And so I have a general idea. And a big part of it, I know that we kind of harped on this earlier, but is being a learner. If you're a learner and you go out there and you can find the resources, you can find the mentors, and you're just excited about it, and you're a sponge and you soak up all the information, then you can get into any space.
I agree with Erin. For me, I didn't have business development in the home care industry. However, I was an eager learner. I always like learning new things, meeting people, learning from people, reaching out to other similar businesses. So that's really how you get over that hurdle is, letting your passion for that industry or that work that you're doing, that business, kind of fuel your learning. You can just read, you can reach out, research, connect with similar businesses. That's the best way.
I just want to harp on what you just said, Georgia. Let your passion for something fuel your learning. If you're going into an area that you don't have experience in, make sure you're not going into that area because you think it's a good area to make money. Because if you're just going into that area because you're like, oh, that's the area where the money is, you'll fail because you don't have a passion for it. So you'll get into it, and entrepreneurship is an absolute full-time job, beyond full-time. So it helps to have experience, right? Like I didn't go into the bike tune-up business not knowing how to tune up a bike. That would have been silly. But if you're really passionate about something and you also then see a need in that area, navigate towards that. Just make sure it's not just to make money.
Yeah.
And I'll add, I did have experience as a professional caregiver from previous years, and some healthcare administrative experience. So I took that and added some learning to it because I was really passionate about seeing people in quality jobs and receiving quality care.
I guess as far as we were going, we didn't have any experience in the CPG space or, doing food, like manufacturing ourselves as like a business, but we quickly figured out how to find people who did have that experience. Like one of the things that we did right off the bat, like we knew that we eventually wanted to be doing chocolate. So we just went to chocolate shops and just said like, hey, can we talk to like whoever owns this place? And like sometimes they would be at the counter, sometimes they're not. And like at some point you're just able to have something to talk about because as people who have already gone through the same pathways that you are about to, people are oftentimes very excited to share what they learned and figure out how you can do better than what they did, and so that kind of helps with like overcoming that journey, having those other people to say that, oh, we've already done this, like this is how it goes.
Great. Georgia, I want to go back to you for a second. And because your business is operating within this cooperative space, and I'm not sure that everyone really understands what a cooperative business model is. And I'm curious if you could tell us a little bit more about it, but then also how did you determine that was the best model for Soaring Independent?
So worker-owned cooperative, there's different types of cooperatives, but we're a worker-owned cooperative, which means that the members, the owners, are workers in the company. So they have a vested interest. They participate in the governance and decision-making, as well as reap the benefits of profit sharing, as well as the any challenges or losses that we acquire. So the reason why we originally started with Soaring Independent Living as an LLC with the mind frame of like we will have multiple owners. So we have always had the desire to have multiple owners to give people in our community the opportunity to build equity and have business ownership, a platform that is able to allow them to learn more about those opportunities. And we were connected to Madison Cooperative Development Coalition and learned more about the cooperative. Because before that, we just knew of Willie Street Co-op, and we're like, we're not really a grocery store. We want to serve people. And so ultimately, we knew that this was the best model for us. We still operate as in a similar way to a traditional business. However, our workers, the employees are the decision makers and owners of the business. But we are able to help them build wealth when we're profitable. We're able to help them have the support network that they need and expose them to new opportunities for advancement roles.
Mm-hmm. So that business model very clearly aligns with kind of the mission of why you were starting up this organization, it sounds like.
Yes. Our why is closely related to all of our, business decisions. So when we decided to provide childcare internally, we did that because we wanted to see our employees succeed. And then that makes our business succeed.
Okay, I'm gonna go to another audience question. How do you grow your business competitively without taking on too much too soon and under-delivering? What's the risk of under-delivering?
Failure. Yeah, no, but ultimately everything's a learning experience, right? So for us, we've been growing. In my mind, we've been growing pretty slowly. I know that we can grow faster than we are, but in this initial launch, we really wanted to prove market validation before we invested even more to really blow it up. So I think that's a good way to do it, is to grow slowly, kind of like we have tested out along the way. And then when you're ready to, when you've got that validation and you have the plan behind you and you have your marketing strategies and you're ready to fly, then you can do it.
Any other thoughts on that one?
You're an entrepreneur, you have a lot of hats. So I think just outwardly, from the external standpoint of other people, it might not look like you're growing. And that can be discouraging to, people are like, oh, what are you doing now? And you're like, oh, I'm doing the same thing. It's just been a couple months, but I'm still working on it. You'll see. But as long as you yourself know that, like, on the back end, you're building the website, you're figuring out a ton of things, and you're constantly learning and pushing, you're doing a good job.
I'm going to layer in this last question that just came in. If your first idea or venture fails to get off the ground, it kind of goes in conjunction with this other topic we were just talking about. How do you deal with feelings of inadequacy and not have them interfere with future projects?
Look up the statistics of how many businesses actually work and then realize that, like, you're fine. I think I started 3 actual, like, businesses that I started to push, and that they all failed. And that's probably going to happen. And, it kind of sucked because it was your baby and you nurtured it. Maybe it was a whole year-long process and then it died. But sometimes you have to, like, let it go and accept that all of that learning that you did, you now don't have to do for your next venture. And your next venture is just going to be that much more successful because you have a whole year's worth of time that you've already invested that you don't have to reinvest, and you just have that knowledge.
It's not personal. It's never a personal thing. This is a business, and it's kind of hard to separate the business from the personal, especially when you put your heart and your soul into it. But you always need to remember that you are not your business. I'm saying this to myself now as I'm saying it out loud, because it's something that we need to remember. And so honestly, you can't look at it as a failure. Just like Ian said, everything is a learning experience, and you only fail when you stop moving forward. So you can always take these lessons and apply them to the next thing. But that is something that is difficult that you need to grapple with, and it's a psychological, mind thing.
I think I've always heard, fail fast. And so to me, I think having that in the back of my mind, that you learn and you grow from, like, failing and doing it again, or just not giving up. And so when we do have, like, we work really hard on something and it doesn't produce the outcomes that we expected, we just use that as a learning opportunity to improve or to direct our next moves. So entrepreneurship business is continuously, evaluating, reassessing, to make sure that you're headed and staying in the right direction. You never know, pandemic could happen and everything changes. So I don't take it personally. I did in the beginning, but I've found ways to appreciate those moments to help fuel the next steps.
Yeah. And I think another thing is that as you're growing your business, you're constantly failing anyway. Like you're always trying new things and trying to like implement things that you think might work. But a lot of the time they just won't. Like you might just not have any like traction, or you're not like really like growing your consumer base or anything, and things are just like you're just spitting out money and nothing's happening, or you're just investing all your time, and like everything that you did in the last like couple of weeks is just kind of like nothing. And I think that kind of not preps you, but gets you in a mindset of like understanding that it's okay for things to fail at a larger scale. Of course, it's always going to suck. Like you're never happy that something failed. But I think knowing that it's a part of the process, and that more than not, you're going to be failing more than you're succeeding is like an important thing to do, because once again, like there's the statistics of how many businesses fail, but like the people who are coming out of those failed businesses are not failed people. Like those people are like still going on to do new things, and doing like new great like ventures that will eventually work out.
Yeah, and that kind of leads me to my last question. We did have another question come into the chat for Kit and Erin. I don't know if you want to go in and maybe type an answer to that, or I know Therese, so I could get you connected with her as well to get her question answered. I want to end with this discussion of having a strong why. What is the importance you guys see, and why is it critically important to have a reason why you're doing this, why it's important to you? How does that help you stay grounded in how you're going through this process?
I'll start with the why I started helps me when you have failures or disappointments, when you're exhausted, and when you're trying to juggle life, work, and being an entrepreneur. That why has to be strong, because you're going to need it in the times that it feels dark and you're like alone. Because they will happen, but that why keeps me going.
Yeah, I think for me there's kind of two sides to it, and one is that at the startup level, that's where you can see the most like active, fast change, and I think that's really exciting and a really crucial part of just like kind of the world and like I guess society for like moving forward, kind of having that continual change and like pushing the envelope so that we can become better. But I think on a more like personal side, there's also the aspect of wanting to have more control over how I want to live my life. So even if it does mean that I would be working more, at least it's something that I'm choosing to do, and having that feeling of choice, I guess, is a very valuable thing, and kind of also helps you stay sane. So even when you're like going through all these failures and successes, and kind of like reflecting back, it's all things that you did. So you don't need to blame it on anyone else. You don't need to say that, oh, it was only because somebody else gave me this. Like you did it.
Founding a startup is like putting together a 10,000 piece puzzle while blindfolded. it gets stressful and overwhelming, and you want someone to tell you the next steps, but no one knows except you. And so you need to have a strong why for those moments. Your why also keeps you centered, and you can come back to it at those critical decision points. And so my why is just sharing yogurt with the world. I want to make it more accessible to the masses. I want to make the world a healthier place. I want to save time, making it more convenient. And ultimately, I want to create a beautiful life for my family and for my staff. And when I can always come back to those reasons when things get hard, if that's a good enough reason for me, and it's a personal thing, these are my reasons, you need to have your reasons. If your personal reasons are strong enough, then the hard times, you can get through those hard times because you can come back to your why.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to reiterate a point that I said earlier. And it's basically just, if you are starting a business, make sure that your why is not that you want to have a whole bunch of money and be able to retire and have your whole business run. You've sold your business and you're totally set and you're going to go travel the world. That's awesome. And that can totally happen. But that why won't carry you through the first 5, 10, 20 years where you really need to push hard. So it's crucial to have a why that's intrinsically motivated and that's not externally, I just want to make a bunch of money. And maybe you will, but in all likelihood, your first couple attempts and whys might fail, and that would discourage you. And if your goal is to make a bunch of money, there's a lot easier way. Like, for instance, you can become, I hope nobody's a dental hygienist who's listening, but dental hygienist doesn't take that much schooling and they make a pretty good amount of money. So if you just want to make money, you can find careers that have a decent level of satisfaction that require, a general level of work and make it really high earning. So I think it's important to sit down and actually think about that before you go into being an entrepreneur.
Great. Thank you all. Well, I'm going to wrap us up here. We could go on talking, I'm sure, the rest of the afternoon. I want to thank all of my panelists. This was an amazing time. I enjoyed talking with all of you and hearing your stories, and I'm sure the audience did as well, and learning from you. It's been a distinct pleasure to moderate this panel, and I want to thank the Innovate Network for affording me this opportunity, because I've learned so much in talking to all 4 of you during this journey to get ready for this panel, then here today. So thank you very much for your time, and I'm going to pass it back to Heather. Heather, where are you out there? There you are.
Right here. So thanks again, everyone, for coming, and to our panelists for taking some time out to share your information today. On the behalf of the UW-Madison Innovate Network, we want to thank all of you, including our moderator, our panelists, as well as you, the audience, for attending. I did love Erin's comment earlier to expect the unexpected and dance with it, which I think speaks a lot to both the flexible mindset of our entrepreneurs and us as mentors too. We've seen the same crazy year and a half or so that you all have, and that's something that we've been focused on, making a lot of those pivots and changes and being able to support all of our entrepreneurs as well. So after this session, watch for a follow-up email from the Innovate Network about connecting to a lot of the resources that you heard about today and different learning opportunities that are available to you. And really just remember that you're not on this journey alone. There's so many people here in the Madison area who are willing to support you and have all kinds of different areas of expertise. So we want to be able to do that. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your time at Forward Fest, and we hope to connect with all of you soon.